Thank you for joining Sandra P's Gen Extra. I hope everyone's having a great morning. Thank you all for joining Sandra P's Gen Extra. I hope everyone's having a great morning. This is going to be Real Housewives of Miami. This is the review for season 7. It is episode 18. This is reunion part 1. This was a chock filled part 1. They have a 3-part reunion. It was explosive. It started out, I didn't like how it started. I didn't like how it ended. I hope that I can continue with this show. I hope Andy Cohen does not ruin this show for us, because I'm just going to say what I feel about Andy Cohen. He has never been a fair interviewer. He was better at it in earlier seasons, before he started allowing these alliances, before he started, in my opinion, joining some alliances. It is so clear that he is so entrenched with Alexia's side of the couch. He doesn't see where he's wrong. And that, I find that really probably hurtful for Guerdy, hurtful for Adriana. It was hard to watch, honestly. It was hard to watch. I'm going to deduct some points when I actually grade the reunion and give my opinion of the reunion, but this is terrible. So Real Housewives of Miami, episode 18, season 7. This is their part 1 of the reunion. We have the ladies, the Miami ladies, and their mojitos in New York. Andy Licker's in up to start. You see my banner running? This is my opinion. And if I use any type of clips or reels, it will be for the purposes of criticism, commentary, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. And also everything that is said during this review, it's alleged, and it's also my own personal opinion. This should all be fun. A lot of the season was not fun. We did get to have some fun moments, but they are starting out right into the mess, everybody. So as you come in, please click the like button. Also, if you're not subscribed already, go ahead and subscribe. I would appreciate that so much. Andy, this is unusual. He says, I know we end with a drink. He starts the ladies off with liquor, tequila. And Marisol, in my opinion, already looks like she's had, it's 5 o'clock somewhere, okay? 5 o'clock somewhere. So we have Julia. We see the ladies arrive in various stages of being dressed and being glam. Julia's crying to her makeup team already, making a cry face at least. She's sensitive because of mean comments to her, and Martina can't be here because she's with the boys. So Martina has really transitioned into a full caretaker role for the boys. We see Julia a lot. She's been traveling. She's been doing different things with her job and leaving Martina there with the boys as if she's the babysitter or a living grandmother. So the twins come in to console her. We know Stephanie called the bros, or Alexia and Marisol, the twins. They come in, oh, what's wrong? Oh. I don't believe Julia's tears, y'all. I think she believes this reunion's not going to go well. She might be wrong, though, because Andy is going to do everything he can, everything in his cockeyed power. Excuse me, but I am disgusted with the way Andy Cohen conducted himself during this reunion. But Julia, if there is truly an HR at Bravo, there's no way in the world Julia should still have her job. We're going to hear about multiple assaults, which I've been bringing up in my reviews the entire season. I already knew about the unseen footage, and we actually get to see some of the unseen footage where she trashed the Mamacita's party thrown by Nicole. Nicole had to pay money out of pocket. We see her try to pour an ice bucket on Marisol. Kiki have to stop her. And Julia is unhinged. So she's crying to the makeup team because she knows what's coming. We get to see Kiki looking beautiful in a blue, kind of like a fairy type looking thing in a Cher vibe. So it was funny when Andy entered Kiki's room. He said, hey, Cher, hey, Cher. She said, oh, that's the look I'm going for. So I thought that was cute. Kiki did look beautiful. So she was wearing her hair parted straight in the middle and then straight down the way Cher used to. And then Andy greets Alexia in Spanish. He's speaking about the colors. His Spanish was struggling a little bit, but they were playing along. She had to correct him. He said, oh, naranja, but she was in yellow. So she had to tell him, what it really was. And he also greeted Marisol. They were all getting ready. Kiki greets Stephanie. Stephanie is prompt. She is first one out there for her first seat, which in my opinion, she did not earn. Didn't earn it. This is a DEI for the season. Didn't earn it. I don't see where Stephanie, who had an okay season, I'll give her a passing grade. I'll give her a 7. For her season, her first season. First chair? No. Actually, because they started out with Julia and Guerdy. So they absolutely should have been first chairs. But they're all sitting down. We see as they come in, they're joking whether or not Lisa's going to make it. But I didn't like when Kiki saw Stephanie. She's like, oh, you're showing some leg? Next time I want to see you show your bits. Talking about, the girls. Kiki can be ratchet, okay? So I don't know how she can get so upset. Kiki can be ratchet. So next we have Ariana comes in. She has an emotional support dog, Basquiat. Andy's like, no, you can't keep this. It's too chaotic. I'm with Andy on that. And I don't believe Adriana. I don't care what little certificate or paperwork you have. I think you just like taking your dog everywhere. And you want to call him an emotional support dog, which a lot of people do. But I don't think that dog is working, Adriana. So everyone is finally on set. And we find out that the beautiful set, Andy says, is inspired by a rooftop location. So he starts out, I'm going to skip around the scenes. Some of it wasn't even pertinent to me or interesting. The main juicy scenes, I will talk about those. Andy asks Kiki about, oh, you said that you were getting a condo? Kiki says, yes, I was getting a condo in one of Stephanie's buildings before I even know. She's joining the show. So now I want 50% off. Lars was like, 50%? That was kind of embarrassing, Kiki. Kiki, you already a pick-me-sha. This made you sound like you were begging. Even Andy said half off. Stephanie just kind of bugged her eyes out. That's not happening. Andy asked a little silly question. I guess these are icebreakers. Adriana, who has the higher sex drive? You or Basquiat? Adriana says the dog, so Basquiat does. Production shows the dog constantly humping on people. I don't like that. I found that really silly, but we get to see that again. Andy asked if the boys know of Martina as a champion. She knows a little bit. They're practicing against the wall the way that Martina grew up playing. I have a hard time watching Julia even speak and not have just the worst feeling about her very intentions. And even for these sweet boys, that's my opinion, because she's going to use them also during the course of part 1. We're in part 1 of this reunion and they come up again. We find out about Todd. Alexia claims, I went no contact with Todd. It's the best way to do it. Blocked. It feels free. The best thing was to get my freedom back. I'm so tired of talking about Todd. Marisol, for some reason, cuts off Alexia while she's talking about Todd. We find out the divorce is final. They've not been in touch. He's not on her social media. He's not in her phone. So Marisol is telling, he would abandon her during the reunions, and the reunions is so hard. We go to war, and you need someone with you. I hate when Marisol does this. So Guerdy is asked by Andy about, do you think things would have gotten as badly between you and Julia if Dr. Nicole was still on the show? Guerdy doesn't really know. She says she's going to see her soon. And I don't know if the issue would have gotten as bad or not. I think Julia had other intentions. She was trying to change friend groups. And I think she felt like she had to start icing out Guerdy and Adriana. That's what it appeared to be on the show, especially with a lot of things that happened. So Andy says, okay, the viewers want to know. This goes back to Marisol's wedding party. He said they want to know, why was there the difference in the reactions of when Julia threw the germ water being my words. Julia's a big germ and she did assault Guerdy with the water. What is the difference between reactions? Julia throwing the germ water in Guerdy's face versus the lady's reaction to the text. I mean, how they responded. Alexia says, we were all in shock. We were all in shock. We didn't know what to do. We didn't like it. We're in shock. Larsa lies. We all got soaked. Last season, I got water thrown on me. Adriana threw a cup at me, a glass at me, and Guerdy didn't do anything. Julia was reacting. I don't think she knew she was going to do it. Guerdy had to stop Larsa and say, okay, well, you admit that when she threw the water, it was directed mainly in my direction? Because when I watched it, and they've reshown the scene numerous times, I think at this point, stop showing it. This is a castmate being assaulted. Andy brags about HR. We watch a person assault a coworker. HR didn't appear to do anything. I need to know what Julia's punishment. She's still on her job. She's third seat just like Guerdy. Guerdy's always under fire. I need to know what is going to happen with this. Because honestly, if I see Julia back, I'm just not interested in the show. I had a hard time finishing out the season. I know people that didn't finish the season after this. This was very triggering, especially for a black woman, just to see that you're so unprotected, even at work, even if it's filmed, it doesn't matter. Now, Guerdy is in a position of defending herself. And then for me, she wasn't really able to do it well with all these people chiming in. Larsa Pippen the loudest. Why was Larsa screaming and so aggressive? At one point, Guerdy had to say, give her a shot. Give her a shot. Because Larsa was yelling, yes, I did. Last year. So Alexia was like, well, Guerdy, last year. And Guerdy said, we're not talking about last year. We're talking about now. Then Alexia gets activated. You're not going to tell me what I'm going to talk about. We get to get respected too. As if Guerdy's the only one being shown respect. She's not. To me, Guerdy has been the most disrespected. And then next to her, maybe I would say Adriana. So Andy asked if Guerdy accepts Alexia's apology, because Alexia apologized. I wish I had done more. Guerdy said it's not an apology. Andy appeared to be kind of annoyed. Andy started to get a little, to me, pissed off that Guerdy's not responding in the way he wants her to. He wants Guerdy to accept this apology and move on, because it's been awkward. And I think it hurt the numbers of the show as well, because this should have been a great season. This is our fun franchise. We're not used to this. Salt Lake City's great fun. They argue, but nobody assaults anyone. So then they show unseen footage of Julia attacking others. There was a scene on the boat where she tried to dump the bucket of ice water over Marisol's head, and we see Kiki stand up and go, we're not doing this. We're not getting physical, and physically having to hold Julia. When they show a close-up of Julia's face, Julia looks totally blacked out when that happens. And during one of her 5 or 6 many apologies, you can see this dark look that gets on her face. It's very weird. It's strange. Alexia is screaming. And then when something, other people have had things thrown on them, but when it happens to you, you didn't like it. So we see all these various videos of Julia. And then Guerdy says, Julia's the one. She's done that at least 3 times. And Alexia said, only once to you. That's the standard now, that you only assaulted a coworker once. Somebody go to work and maybe be at the end of your job or something. Maybe you're retiring. Go to work and throw something in a coworker's face and come back and let us know what happened. Kiki claimed, I'm being called racist. Guerdy says, oh, you're being called racist now. Who's calling you racist? Who's calling you racist? Kiki says, I defended you as a friend and we were good. They're all lying. When we went to Spain, everything was good. They were good because Guerdy had tried to put aside and she and Julia had the lunch. Guerdy had apologized for kind of spilling some of Julia's business as far as her having the facelift while Martina was getting cancer treatments. Julia wanted an apology for that, for betraying Guerdy, betraying her trust. So they thought they were okay, but it was only because I thought Guerdy was overly forgiving. Kiki's claiming that Guerdy's fans are attacking her because Guerdy tweeted, or not tweeted, Guerdy's on IG a lot. FAFO. I follow Guerdy on IG. I don't find her stirring the pot. And then Alexia Marisol is saying, why does she think it's important to get online? And Marisol says, fan the flames. This is rich coming from someone that allegedly hires private investigators to follow coworkers. And allegedly, that's why Dr. Nicole's no longer on the show. So I find that outrageous. The twins come up again. Julia's using those sweet boys. Because Guerdy said, well, why didn't you call me? Before we had the premiere and you knew that this had happened, why didn't you say Guerdy and I had a big moment where something happened? Because Julia, remember, was acting like nothing had happened. It was all rumors. And then when it happened, Julia was kind of waiting to see what the audience response would be. She knew she had the bros on her side. She knew she had Larsa Pippen on her side. She knew basically Guerdy was standing alone with a little support from Adriana and Lisa. To me, Lisa really didn't want to get into it like that. So Julia is saying there are. She wrote something on IG. She's chimed in where the children's name were changed and criticized us for that, tried to shame us for that. I saw what Guerdy wrote. It looked as if she didn't really use the correct words. She says the grown children names were changed. The kids aren't grown. These are little kids. They're toddlers. The brothers are maybe 1 year old and 3 year old, somewhere along there. So, of course, these aren't grown kids, but they're of an age, Julia. I don't care if you consulted a psychologist. They do know their names. So she's changed their names for her and Martina's benefit and comfort. But these boys did know their names from whatever family they came from. So after this water toss, I feel like they continue to question and also ice out Guerdy. Guerdy says, well, roll the tape, roll the footage. We saw a little bit of this during the season where after Guerdy was sitting there soaked, Kiki got up to leave. She tried to get Guerdy to leave with her. Guerdy's like, oh, Kiki said the other reason they called her racist is because Guerdy insinuated that she's making Kiki's making her look like the angry black woman for pulling her away. I know what Guerdy meant. When someone is being physical, you don't pull away the one that's getting assaulted. Pull Julia away. Julia is the one that was assaulting. So we get Marisol slurring. I took her to the bathroom. Right after this, Guerdy's saying, of course. I took Julia to the bathroom. She was crying. Julia, to me, she's not a good actress. I didn't buy her tears. I think she felt like she had lost her job in the moment. Again, I don't know. I think Andy's more upset with Martina and her comments about surrogacy than he is this assault. I really do. Andy claims, I'm about to ask her because Guerdy was still talking. Guerdy was getting flustered at this point, y'all, with Julia's demeanor. She said, I overreacted. Also, it was the tequila. That's when she laughed a little bit, y'all. Not funny, but she laughed. Guerdy says, oh, that's scary. Because Julia's claiming that she didn't know what's going on. Larsa's yelling, let it finish. Larsa was very hyped up. Larsa, you were calling Jody an AC addict and all this kind of stuff. You seem really hype. You seem really hype. So Larsa's yelling. Julia says, I'd like to finish. And he says, I want to move on to the text. So Andy Cohen's tired of the assault, and he'd like to move on to the text. So we'll move from the physical to the text. Andy does, he does correctly say, viewers noticed that the group was more upset about the text being shown than the water being thrown. I mean, not that the viewers were more upset, but that the ladies appeared. Because remember, when the water was thrown, they sat there and they grilled Guerdy. They did say, we don't like this. Larsa gave the mildest rebuke I've ever seen. We don't like this. We shouldn't be throwing things. Marisol took her in the bathroom and said the same. We shouldn't throw things at people. Don't throw anything at someone. Guerdy did correctly say, she said, I feel like, okay, you should have told her that in front of me, but there's this alliance going on where you can't even correct her in front of me. So they're all saying that they did correct her. They did feel bad. But the viewer didn't see it. Guerdy did not see it. We didn't see it until the viewer feedback started, and then that's when the ladies started. So Marisol claims Julia was undone. She's doing all this crying, saying, and then Marisol says, we can't do this on our show. Marisol, in my opinion, was more upset about how it looked rather than anything else. I really do believe that. So production shows Larsa saying, we don't like this. We don't like this. Alexia's bringing up last season. And then Andy asked about the text. What were the texts supposed to prove? What were the texts supposed to prove? Gertie's saying, well, they were going to prove, but they don't read. Guerdy was being sarcastic at this point. She couldn't really get herself together. And then Adriana is saying, she said, tell them what they proved, that you didn't ask to go. She invited you. And Guerdy says, the viewer knows. And Adriana said, no, tell them. Because Guerdy, she wasn't really getting it across. Andy says, okay, so to date, she's apologized at least 5 times on camera. So where do we go from here? Julia's talking slowly. I want to apologize. I want you to feel it. What must I do you to feel it for the sixth time? But and Guerdy says, well, why didn't you call me before the season started? I didn't call you. My boys under attack. Using those boys again until they grow up and be able to work that farm. She's going to use them to change viewer sentiment of her if she's still on the show. And honestly, at this point, it wouldn't shock me if she's still on the show. So Larsa pipes up. The kids are off limits. The kids are off limits. We don't talk about each other's kids. So Guerdy says, okay, Julia, just admit that it's not about the cruise. Julia does admit it's not about the cruise. Guerdy says, you call me a psychopath. You call me scary. Those are words that matter. Julia's lying. I apologize for that. I would like to move forward. Andy keeps asking, what do you want her to do? They're mad that Guerdy won't tie this up with a pretty bow. Larsa's yelling, she's apologized 10 times. What do you want her to do? And that's when Guerdy said, she's getting aggressive. Give her another shot. Because Larsa was sitting there going crazy. If Guerdy had been sitting there yelling like that, it would have been a different story. So Guerdy's saying if they don't want to talk about the issues, that is okay. Stephanie's cheap, ugly green suit is rubbing off on the couch. Larsa is joking, be careful with that on the plane. Stephanie is saying she's going to leave like right after that on her plane, the plane, but she's not going to wear that suit on there. You know, Stephanie had a list of rules of what you could wear on the plane. So she wouldn't have even allowed herself to wear this green suit that's rubbing off on the plane. We see Stephanie's package. It's the introduction of her and Larsa when Larsa's like, I thought we were going to lunch. Stephanie's saying we're going to get caviar. We have to pick up the dogs for my parents. Larsa's like, who does that? Takes a private jet to fly from Miami to Orlando. Is that even normal? So they're acting. They're trying to be cute. Andy says the viewers feel like you flaunted your wealth. Stephanie makes some kind of Super Bowl analogy and says, well, at the end, I'm very proud. I'm very proud. Somebody's piping in, and she works her butt off. She works. Andy asked her a good question. He said, well, what did you learn watching? Stephanie says, I've learned that my tone isn't coming across as I mean it. It's a lot more stern. It's a lot more bossy. He says, yeah, Alexia and Marisol think that you are bossy. She says that is not her intent. In a male-dominated industry that she's in construction, she's in real estate. She says she can't talk to her friends like that. So she's realizing that. And she says because of her sister, she realizes that. He asked her who would Stephanie hire. She said because of her sister, she realizes she probably should not work with anyone that she loves very much. And she realizes that she loves these ladies. Andy reads a viewer question. These viewer questions were not playing, y'all. The viewer question that Andy read was about, the viewer says, Stephanie did not meet Masood at an Orlando, not Orlando, maybe it was a Miami Heat game. They allege that Stephanie met Masood through his ex-wife. She was the assistant. Stephanie lies. I've never met the ex-wife. I've never met her. There's not a photo or an email or a text. This is why I believe she's lying. Either you've met the lady or been in the same room with the lady. Maybe it's a Charles Oakley situation where you're in the same room, but you didn't meet. So I don't know. I don't believe Stephanie in Miami running in the same circles. She's never met this lady. And again, not a photo, an email, or a text to prove. Adriana pipes up. Until recently, Stephanie lies. But I didn't meet her. Adriana said, we were at lunch and you saw her. I said, that's Masood's ex-wife. So Stephanie, you were there. Stephanie asked what she learned. She said she learns how much she does truly love every girl there. I don't know about love. I do think Stephanie has been a good addition. She had maybe a C or a grade 70, a 7. Rate her season as a 7. I'd like to see her back and see how she changes since she knows more about how she's come across. So Andy asked Lisa, is AC Andy Cohen? Lisa says, yes, you're always on our mind. AC is Andy Cohen. She says, well, no, it's air conditioning. I didn't know at first, y'all. I did a whole Sandra P's Gen Extra video that I didn't know because the way it was cut by production, it looked really strange. Now I believe the only person that might have been on AC was the one we saw in a picture where Larsa called the paparazzi and they caught Marcus red-handed. Larsa, you gonna bring a new man every year? So he's asking about. Andy says, "Oh, they bring Lisa's package. Stephanie's dragging Lisa about being late." Maddie Saw claims, "We've been wanting to say this for 13 years. Maddie Saw, that's not the flex you think it is. It looks really bad." They show the TikTok guru with all the red party flags that they were giving to Lisa. We show Lisa kind of hinting toward a ring, and Jody saying they need therapy. And then Andy asks whether or not Adriana was ever considered for godmother. Julia says no. Adriana said that's like a dagger to the heart. Julia's giving that weird dark look that she gives. Like, I wouldn't want to meet Julia in a dark alley when she's upset with you. Julia has a very dark energy, y'all. Look at her when she's answering things or people aren't responding as she likes. It's kind of dangerous. Guerdy asked, "Didn't you write 2 character letters?" She sent Adriana up for the alley-oop. Adriana says, "Yeah, I did. I wrote 2 character letters." Kiki pipes up. "Kiki, what this got to do with you? This is why we call you a pick-misha. Wasn't that before the relationship changed?" It doesn't matter. This lady wrote 2 character letters. Is the reason why you and Martina maybe even got those children. So Andy remembers the friendship engagement. I had forgotten that, y'all. This was worse than the friendship contract with Nene and Cynthia. That was cute. This was weird. We should see Julia jumping down to one knee to propose in a friendship engagement to Adriana. Then we get confessional Julia from this season telling us, "Adriana is jealous of my new friendship with Alexia and Marisol." So then they show Adriana remembering bringing when she told her that you're only here because I took you out of that ish hole you were in and you wouldn't know anybody if I didn't bring you on the show. That was actually the last episode at the Christmas party. So then we see Julia again saying that 4 years of freaking mental psych abuse. When the camera panned on Adriana, she was so upset. So Andy asked if the catalyst was the friendship with Alexia. Adriana was trying to answer, but Julia pipes up, "Andy, I promise. It'll all be clear if I can answer. This will bring clarity." Adriana's just looking. Adriana looks kind of like stuck, like, okay, what's she getting ready to say? "If I can say this will bring clarity." That's Julia. Every time Julia wants to interrupt someone, Andy turns the conversation to them. That's why I feel like he's protecting Julia. And I wouldn't be surprised to see her back, even though a lot of the viewers don't want her. Now, if you look under IG, there are a few people that defend her. I don't know if they're troll accounts or what the deal is, but believe it or not, there are people that are for physical assault of coworkers. So Julia says, to bring clarity to the situation in Hampton, Adriana and I slept together. End of the episode. We see Adriana getting up. This is the previews for next week. Adriana getting up. Adriana saying, "I'll never go with that dirty little whore." Adriana using whore with her whole chest. Rolled the R and everything. So I don't know. I kind of believe it, y'all, because the energy between Adriana and Julia, you can have a deep friendship breakup, but the way Julia humps and pumps and feels all over everybody and they're drinking all the time, it wouldn't shock me if that happened on a trip. It just would not. So I don't find Julia to be sorry. I felt like she was smirking on Watch What Happened Live when Isaac Mizrahi, who I cannot stand anymore. I'm glad you threw that lady, water in that lady's face. Otherwise, what would we be talking about? Julia's sitting there smiling. "I apologize. I want to apologize again." Remember, she had not called Guerdy up to that point. So she thought that was cute. I think she thought the viewers would think, yeah, get her, Julia. But we didn't think that. A few did, but the majority has not. And this is not panning out well for the rest of the couch. I watched the Brooke Ashley. The Brooke Ashley met Alexia at an event that she was invited to, one of the Bravo events. And the Brooke Ashley says that Alexia told her, because I was doing one of Brooke's lives, Alexia told her, "You'll be pleased. We figured things out. You'll be pleased." They'd already shot the reunion. And Brooke's like, "So everybody," you know how Brooke is. Brooke's like, Alexia says she's redeemed herself. I'm going to be pleased with what I watched. Brooke came back a couple weeks later and said, "Okay, I was wrong." Alexia, she found out that Alexia had lied, just flat out lied when she met Brooke. So the main things that stand out is Julia. Is she outing Adriana? I don't know if Adriana is bisexual or if this was just a once experience. I don't know. But if this was between the two of them, why are we hearing about this with Julia trying to throw a one up on Adriana? I don't even know why that came up. Julia has assaulted numerous cast members with various objects. She's caused damage that Dr. Nicole had to pay for. And then they all still sided with her and try to blame Guerdy. If Lartha was so upset about having a glass of water thrown at her by Adriana, HR should have addressed that then. Why is Guerdy responsible for giving a towel? Larsa said, well, you didn't give me a towel and I got water thrown last week. Larsa was still screaming, lying. This was a really difficult episode, everybody. Very difficult. If you're in the bushes, everybody, please just go ahead and click the like button. If you are already subscribed, go ahead. Well, if you're not subscribed, go ahead and subscribe. And y'all, we're going to tune in next week for part 2. I don't know that this reunion needs 2 parts, but it was an explosive beginning, an explosive ending. I don't know how some of these women can continue to be friends. It's going to be difficult to watch. This is a picture of Guerdy, the knot through the cancer survivor party for her. She was beautiful in her white dress. I wish that she had more people on her side than just Adriana and Lisa. Because Adriana, to me, looked so dejected and just kind of down. I don't know. I don't think all of that was because Basquiat couldn't stay out there. But she tried to defend a little bit. She could not. Lisa was very silent. I get Lisa not wanting to be in the middle of this mess, but I would have liked to have seen more defense from her. Stephanie does want to be neutral, but there was one point when Guerdy said, you know, I was conspired against to shame me, and I believe it was Stephanie saying, nobody was trying to shame you. Stephanie, you, in fairness, you don't know what Julia's motive was. Because I don't understand having a disagreement with a friend and it becoming physical at a public event, something like a wedding party. When they showed that scene again, Marisol's husband, Steve, was at the bar with the men. He was laughing his face off. He found it very entertaining. And I think someone being assaulted at your wedding party is not entertaining. So this was part 1, y'all. I have to give it a 7. I'm deducting all 3 points for cockeyed Andy Cohen and his disgraceful performance as a moderator. It gets worse. It gets worse every year. He was actually better in the early years when nobody knew what they were doing during the reunions and they looked like they went to Marshall's, grabbed something, and came and sat down. He was a lot better then. But now he's taking sides to the point where this is just part 1. So I'll give a 7 to part 1, but all 3 points I deducted were for Andy Cohen. I'm disgusted with him. I'm going to BravoCon. I'm going to try to come up with some type of question because I need to know more. But I did like the questions that the viewers asked. But again, Andy, we need to know what HR did, please, because it doesn't look like any action has been taken. It shouldn't just be on Guerdy to defend herself. We need to know more about what punishment Julia's faced, where she could have 3 physical events and appears not to have paid any price for them. So we'll see what happens in part 2 of the reunion. But everybody, thank you so much for joining Sandra P's Gen Extra. And I will see you all in the YouTube streets. Happy Friday, everybody. Bye.